faithfully delivering value, interpreting great books from around the world.
Hello, this is Sally's Book Club. Today, the book we're exploring is Competitive Advantage. The subtitle is Seeing Through the Corporate Moat. The concept of corporate moat was first proposed by Warren Buffett, the legendary investor, in his 1993 shareholder letter. Buffett likens businesses to castles vulnerable to competitor attacks. For companies within the moat, continually strengthening competitive advantages to deter invaders is crucial. Meanwhile, businesses seeking entry must strategize how to breach these fortifications. This leads to the author's core focus: how companies analyze, leverage, and protect competitive advantages to build sound strategies. The book is co-authored by Bruce Greenwald and Judd Kahn. Bruce Greenwald is a renowned American economist and Columbia Business School professor, hailed by the New York Times as the guru of Wall Street gurus. This book distills his Columbia MBA course material. Co-author Judd Kahn is managing partner at Davidson Kahn Capital, and together they've authored multiple best-selling investment books. The New York Times reviewed Competitive Advantage. They called it the finest strategy book available, where Professor Greenwald delivers an accessible yet profound analytical framework. The book's 18 chapters divide into 3 sections. Part 1, where do competitive advantages originate? Part 2, identifying and evaluating competitive advantages. Part 3, integrating competitive advantage concepts into strategic planning. Let me walk you through each part. First, Part 1, where do competitive advantages originate? All businesses seek profitable opportunities in the market. Yet observe, some industries allow easy entry for many firms, while others remain nearly inaccessible to most. Imagine an industry with high ROI where all businesses can enter. Naturally, hordes of competitors would swarm in. Pioneering firms enjoying high returns would then face declining sales, rising costs, and shrinking market share. The entire industry's profits will gradually decline amid fierce competition until they vanish. But if an industry has high ROI alongside significant entry barriers, new players outside can't enter no matter how much they invest or how perfectly they imitate products, allowing incumbents to exclusively dominate the market within the barriers. Then we can say this firm possesses competitive advantages over outside competitors. Thus, the authors propose that building barriers equates to building competitive advantages. So, what kind of competitive advantages actually function as effective barriers? The authors contend only 3 qualify: supply-side advantages, demand-side advantages, and economies of scale. Let's examine them sequentially, starting with supply-side advantages. Cost efficiencies.
When firms possess low-cost structures that potential entrants can't replicate, enabling cheaper production, that constitutes a barrier.
In such scenarios, firms inside barriers achieve high profits, while outside entrants can't due to prohibitively high costs. I feel ongoing. So how do firms attain low-cost structures? The most common way is through proprietary technology, patent-protected products or processes. During patent periods, this protection is absolute. Competitors can't bypass patents to replicate production. Historically, Xerox and copiers, Kodak and film, and pharma companies leveraged such advantages during patent windows. Additionally, in complex industries, accumulating operational expertise enables proprietary cost reductions, like chemicals and semiconductors. Some firms master processes raw materials to boost yields and slash costs, yet such advantages rarely last. Achieved. Patents expire, and expertise-based cost edges may become obsolete amid rapid technological change. Consider Philips in the late 1960s. They pioneered laser digital replication to copy music onto CDs. Back then, recording options were vinyl or tape. CDs surpassed both in sound quality, durability, and digital distribution ease. Philips leveraged this first-mover tech advantage to dominate the CD market, but lost its edge in just 2 years. Because CD manufacturing tech kept evolving, new entrants used more advanced equipment to produce discs cheaper. Estimates show Philips' first-gen tech cost $2.50 per disc. in capital expenses, while third-gen tech brought costs down to just $1.12. Crucially, Philips lacked long-term stable clients for its CD business. Record companies, the main CD buyers, held absolute choice power. Philips offered no compelling reason to choose them. Thus, the author's second competitive advantage, demand side, means customer lock-in. Customer lock-in builds loyalty that prevents easy switching to competitors. Businesses typically achieve this through habit, switching costs, and search costs. Like your daily coffee habit, you wouldn't suddenly switch to juice. That's habit lock-in. Or your company's accounting software. Switching is costly with data migration. That's switching cost lock-in. Finally, search cost lock-in. Many stick with their first auto insurer because comparing policies takes effort. After all that work, differences are often minimal, unlike Philips's failure to lock in customers. The authors contrast this with Cisco's successful customer lock-in. In the 1970s through 80s, PCs couldn't communicate. Cisco solved this by inventing routers to connect PCs into local networks for internal data transfer. As router inventors, Cisco gained monopoly status. From $70 million revenue in 1990 to $19 billion by 2000, a 66% compound annual growth rate. Such impressive sales inevitably attracted new entrants, but Cisco maintained leadership through solid customer lock-in. How did Cisco lock in customers? Through the three aspects we just discussed. First, habit lock-in. Routers combined hardware and software, requiring skilled installation and maintenance. Companies expanding networks habitually return to existing suppliers for additional equipment. Second, high switching costs. Since Cisco routers were incompatible with competitors, switching meant replacing all existing hardware at massive cost. Third, high surge costs. Even first-time buyers faced time-consuming evaluations of new suppliers. Could they match Cisco's standards? Like other digital gear, router tech evolved rapidly. Cisco invested heavily in R&D to continuously upgrade products meeting client demands. This further cemented lock-in, but customer retention alone wasn't enough. Now let's examine the third competitive advantage, economies of scale. What are economies of scale? Production costs split into two parts. Fixed costs, one-time investments like factory lines or ad campaigns, independent of output volume, and variable costs tied directly to output, like fabric per garment or parts per car. If fixed costs are low with variable costs dominating, scale economies are weak. Apparel firms exemplify this. Low production line costs, fabric and labor, market-driven with little variation, offer minimal cost flexibility. But software firms have high fixed R&D costs. After development, replication costs, variable costs, approach zero. Higher sales spread fixed costs thinner, making scale economies powerful. So revisiting Philips and Cisco, we must factor in scale economies. Data analysis reveals that in Philips's CD business, fixed costs like plants and equipment were largely amortized once annual output hit 2 million disks, a volume easily achievable by competitors. Thus, Philips couldn't sustain economies of scale. Cisco differed. Router business involved complex tech requiring strong support and continuous R&D investment. High fixed cost ratios demanded massive sales volume to spread costs. Cisco's scale meant lower costs versus smaller rivals. The authors conclude, scale economies' essence is dominant firms, spreading fixed costs over more units than rivals. Okay, that's part one. The path. 3 competitive advantages exist. Supply side, demand side, and economies of scale. Supply side advantages, cost efficiencies, come from patent-protected tech or experience-based proprietary knowledge. Demand-side advantages are customer lock-in, building loyalty through habit formation, high switching search costs. Economies of scale mean massive fixed investments, yield sub-industry costs at high volumes. Since advantages are strategic cornerstones, firms must evaluate if they possess them. This brings us to part 2, identifying and evaluating competitive advantages. 3 steps guide this process. Step 1, define competitive arenas. Analyze industry segments and players within each. Step 2, assess advantage existence in each market. The authors propose two metrics: market share stability and profitability. If firms maintain steady market shares with sustained high profitability, competitive advantages undoubtedly exist there. Step 3, determine which advantage or scale economies, supply side, demand side, or scale economies apply. The authors illustrate this process using Apple as a case study. Note: this book was published around 2005 with no subsequent updates. So their Apple analysis primarily uses 1990 to 2000 data. First, they analyzed Apple's competitive landscape. Back then, the PC industry had three main segments. Demonstration key players: Intel, AMD, IBM, and Motorola. Segment 2, OS software firms: Microsoft, IBM, Apple, Linux. Segment 3, computer makers: Dell, HP, IBM, Apple, Gateway, Compaq, etc. The authors combined steps 2 and 3 to assess advantages in each segment. In the CPU segment, market shares remained remarkably stable. Since the 1980s, despite constant upgrades, Intel maintained absolute dominance. The authors cite Cisco as a successful customer lock-in example. In the 1970s through 80s, PCs couldn't communicate. Cisco solved this by inventing routers to connect PCs into local networks for data transfer.
As router inventors, Cisco achieved monopoly status.
Revenue soared from $70 million in 1990 to $19 billion by 2000, a 66% CAGR. Such growth attracted competitors, but Cisco's ironclad customer lock-in preserved leadership. How did Cisco lock in customers? Through the three mechanisms we discussed. First, habit lock-in. Routers combine hardware and software, requiring skilled installation and maintenance. Companies expanding networks habitually return to existing suppliers for additional equipment. Second, high switching costs. Since Cisco routers were incompatible with competitors, switching meant replacing all existing hardware at massive cost. Third, high search costs. Even first-time buyers faced time-consuming evaluations of new suppliers. Could they match Cisco's standards? Like other digital gear, router tech evolved rapidly. Cisco invested heavily in R&D to continuously upgrade products, meeting client demands. This further cemented lock-in, but customer retention alone wasn't enough. Now let's examine the third competitive advantage: economies of scale. What are economies of scale? Production costs split into two parts: fixed costs, one-time investments like factory lines or ad campaigns, independent of output volume, and variable costs tied directly to output, like fabric per garment or parts per car. If fixed costs are low, with variable costs dominating, scale economies are weak. Apparel firms exemplify this. Low production line costs, fabric and labor, market-driven with little variation, offer minimal cost flexibility. But software firms have high fixed R&D costs. After development, replication costs, variable costs approach zero. Higher sales spread fixed costs thinner, making scale economies powerful. So revisiting Philips and Cisco, we must factor in scale economies.
Data shows Philips' CD fixed costs were largely amortized at 2 million discs annually, a volume easily achievable by competitors.
So Philips struggled to sustain economies of scale.
Cisco, however, was different. Its router business involved significant complexity, requiring robust technical support and continuous investment in new software and hardware.
Fixed costs accounted for a large portion of total costs, so firms needed high sales volume to spread them out. Cisco's large sales meant lower costs, while smaller rivals faced higher costs. Thus, the authors state that the essence of economies of scale is dominant firms spreading fixed costs over more products than rivals. Okay, that wraps up part 1. There are 3 competitive advantages: supply side, demand side, and economies of scale. Supply side advantages, also called low-cost advantages, mainly come from patent-protected proprietary tech or experience-based proprietary costs. Demand side advantages, also known as customer lock-in, firms build loyalty through habit formation, high switching costs, and search costs.
Economies of scale mean firms invest huge fixed costs, which at massive sales volumes create low-cost advantages far below industry norms.
Since competitive advantages are central to business strategy, firms must evaluate if they have them. This leads to part 2, identifying and evaluating competitive advantages. Identifying and evaluating competitive advantages involves 3 steps. Step 1, define the competitive arena. Analyze industry segments and competitors in each market. Step 2, examine whether competitive advantages exist in each market. The authors suggest 2 metrics here. First, market share. Second, profitability. If firms consistently maintain stable market shares and high profitability, then undoubtedly competitive advantages exist in that market. Step 3, determine which of the 3, supply side, demand side, or economies of scale, apply, or a combination.
The authors use Apple as a case study to demonstrate how to apply these steps.
Note that this book was published after 2005 and hasn't been updated. So their Apple analysis primarily uses data from 1990 to 2000. The authors first analyzed Apple's competitive landscape. Yet media mogul Murdoch's Fox Broadcasting successfully crossed the moat into the fortress.
How did Murdoch do it?
Murdoch's core strategy was signaling incumbent players. I'm not here to steal your turf. First, he avoided competing markets, never attacking rivals' territory. He acquired 6 independent stations unaffiliated with the big 3 networks. Fox aired rejected content initially, children's shows and entertainment others avoided. Then Murdoch implemented price-following tactics, inflicting minor pain on multiple firms. He set ad rates 20% below existing networks. This maintained the gap. If networks lowered prices, Fox would match the discount. Simultaneously, he signaled willingness to follow industry norms. No predatory pricing, just using the 20% gap to attract some advertisers. If networks raised prices, Fox followed suit. Critically, incumbent ad revenues dwarfed Fox's. Price wars would hurt them more. The big 3 correctly interpreted Fox's signals, recognizing its compliance, and welcomed it into their club. Thus, Fox became the 4th major network. Now, the second scenario. How should incumbents defend advantages? The authors advise preemptive moves, boosting fixed costs, ads or R&D, matching entrance products, or joint price cuts. Polaroid exemplified this. Polaroid's flagship product was instant cameras. Before 1976, Polaroid monopolized U.S. instant photography, producing all cameras and film. From 1947 to 1975, it maintained 100% market share with exceptional ROI. From 1969 to 1975, Polaroid averaged a 42% pre-tax return on capital, showcasing its formidable competitive advantage. It had fiercely loyal customers who eagerly upgraded with every new camera release. Polaroid held multiple product and process patents, invested hundreds of millions in R&D and ads, achieving massive sales and pronounced scale economies. In 1976, Kodak entered instant photography with 2 differently priced instant cameras. These directly challenged Polaroid's specs and pricing. Polaroid responded instantly by boosting advertising. When Kodak discounted or lowered prices, Polaroid immediately matched them. Kodak launched mid to low-end models. Polaroid, previously premium, released competing versions. Kodak's advertising wars, price battles, new products, and tech upgrades couldn't outmaneuver Polaroid, who often executed better. Despite gaining some market share, Kodak suffered massive losses in instant photography. From 1976 to 1983, its operating losses exceeded $300 million. Ultimately, Kodak lost Polaroid's patent lawsuit and exited instant photography. Only Kodak's financial strength allowed such prolonged resistance. Yet Polaroid paid dearly too. After Kodak's entry, Polaroid's profits plummeted. Post-Kodak, profits partially rebounded but soon collapsed due to digital photography's rise, leading to bankruptcy. Thus, the authors contend, when entrants are determined, firms should weigh acceptance costs against resistance. Coexistence and market growth may be ideal. Consider the cola wars between Coca-Cola and Pepsi. In 1977, they waged a brutal price war, hemorrhaging revenues and profits. By the 1990s, after Warren Buffett joined Coca-Cola's board, He advised CEO Roberto Goizieta to reconcile with Pepsi. Thus began over a decade of détente in the 90s, dramatically improving both companies' performance. That wraps up part 3 on corporate strategy. When entering a market without dominant players, firms should first establish dominance in a local region. If industry giants already exist, businesses should operate discreetly and avoid direct confrontation. When incumbents face challenges, the authors advise preemptive moves, like increasing fixed costs or mirroring new entrance tactics, to force competitors out with unsustainable losses. But if entrants are determined, firms should evaluate acceptance versus resistance costs, seeking coexistence to grow the market together. This book approaches corporate management through moat building strategies. As a value investing expert, Greenwald also guides general readers from this perspective. It helps investors identify competitive advantages and their sources for informed decision making. That concludes our interpretation. Reading notes are below the audio. See you next episode.